What's going on, everybody? Architecture here. Hope you all had a good and safe New Year celebration. Hope you all enjoyed your holiday. Now, back to getting to YouTube. I know it's been a while since I made a video, and I've told myself that, hey, the New Year's resolution is to actually get committed to YouTube. So we're going to do that. We're starting off with, something big, something important, and that is talking about Assassin's Creed as a franchise. So today we're going to do our on an old series that I used to do that I haven't done in a while. What went right, or talk about what in a video game that's very good in my opinion did right to get to where it is in my mindset of being a great game. So welcome to another episode of What Went Right. Today we're gonna talk about what went right with Assassin's Creed franchise. You can also kind of consider this a late review for Odyssey. Now we're only talking about the last two Assassin's Creed games and changes made and what it's basically an unofficial reboot of the franchise, and at least in terms of what the identity of the game is. Assassin's Creed right now is not the same thing Assassin's Creed was back with Syndicate and Unity and Black Flag. The game right now is entirely new. It's an unofficial reboot in my opinion. So if you haven't played Origins or Odyssey, the first thing about those I will say to you is, why haven't you played these games? No, they are amazing games. I did reviews on Origins, and I think I'll link that in the description if you want to see it. It's not a long video. It was one of those quick rapid fire reviews. So if you want to watch it, I'll put it in the description box so you can click on. Even though when I did that review, I didn't finish Origins at the time. By now, I've already beat it way past that. So if I recorded it now and I rescored the game, I would give Origins a 9 out of 10. And right now with Odyssey, I have like 63 hours into the game. I will say Odyssey is a 9. I haven't even beat the game yet. I've already completed 42% of Odyssey's campaign without, beating it, and I'm only at 63%, and I have 63 hours into the game finished. So it's a big game, it's a long game. You can do a lot, spend a lot of time just running around the world and not do anything. You spend almost 80 hours just playing around with the side quests. Great game, though. I'd say I prefer Origins more so than Odyssey because I'm a huge fanboy of Ancient Egypt. So if you ask me which the better game, since they're both 9s, what's the better game? I'll say Origins because the time period, the environment. I love Egypt and I love ancient Egyptian mythology, so I lean more toward Origins. But if you're into like ancient Greek mythology and Sparta and things like that, you'll be more inclined to be into Odyssey. Which also, I'm a huge fanboy of Assassin's Creed in general. I love Assassin's Creed, so yes, my opinion on this game might come off as biased if you feel like the things I'm saying is only because I like the franchise as much as I do. Because I'm not hugely biased towards it. I think Syndicate was a meh game. I thought Unity was not a good game. So obviously, there's games in the franchise that aren't as good as they should be, as good as I want them to be. So I'm open-minded enough and critical enough to understand, what is and what isn't good. Let's get out down with the rambling and get on topic. A few years ago, Assassin's Creed was at a crossroads. Everybody was done with the franchise after the horror release of Unity and the lackluster release of Syndicate. Even the hardcore fan base was bored with the franchise and begged Ubisoft to make changes. Thing is, those two games weren't actually bad games, but because they weren't the games we wanted for Assassin's Creed, and we were getting Assassin's Creed on a yearly basis, and we had a fatigue with the franchise. Those games suffered because of that fatigue, because of how they launched. Unity had a very buggy and glitchy launch, and because of that, we'd never seen a AAA game at that time period be this buggy and that glitchy. Like now we have Fallout 76, and we're looking at that like, oh my god, this is so bad. And then you also had a Battlefield 4 launch where it was so buggy and glitchy in their release. That was Unity. Unity was so buggy at launch that it was crazy. It was like, how is this game from a AAA developer this buggy, this glitchy? Did they even bother playtesting it? Did they even bother polishing the game? This makes no sense for a $60 game to release in this state. So because of how bad Unity's launch was, people ignore Syndicate out of fear of it's going to be another Unity. And it kind of sucks because overall Syndicate was a decent game. It was an empty game in terms of like, the content and things to do, but it was a decent game. Evie was like a great character. I love Evie Frost. She's a very good character. Her brother Jacob was kind of meh, but he wasn't very likable. But when it comes to just Syndicate out of itself, it was a decent game, and I feel like Syndicate suffered out of fear of it being another Unity. So Ubisoft had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what to do with Assassin's Creed. What do you do with this franchise? People are fatigued with it. No one liked Syndicate, no one liked Unity. Assassin's Creed 3 was kind of rocky. Black Flag was, people like Black Flag, but that was the only game between Assassin's Creed Revelations and Syndicate where anybody actually liked the franchise. So what do you do? How do you get people back into the game? In comes Origins. This fresh new Assassin's Creed that evolved the franchise from an action game to a role-playing game. It took inspiration from Dragon Age Inquisition and The Witcher 3, two games that won Game of the Year, two games widely loved by RPG gamers. Wrapped in the universe of Assassin's Creed, and finally gave fans what we had been asking for since Assassin's Creed 2, an ancient Egyptian game. New combat system, new area on new idea on exploration, new ways of fighting boss, and everything with Assassin's Creed was new and fresh. It was the beginning of a new franchise. Assassin's Creed as a role-playing game, Assassin's Creed in general was just new. Origin's story is remarkable. Bayek is a great character, amazingly voice acted, stunning graphics, majestic landscapes, great moments behind the story like fighting gods and fighting the most famous family of ancient time, Tutankhamun, his father Akhenaten, Akhenaten's wife Nefertiti, and Ramses the Great. All these things was amazing in that game. So how do you follow such a good game? How do you follow up Assassin's Creed Origins that was so great? You have this mindset. Did Ubisoft peak with Origins? Did they throw all their eggs in a basket at once, and Origins is the only game that they come up with where it's going to be this good? How do you follow up on that good of a game? How can you do better than that good of a game? Because usually when it comes to sequels and things that follow other games, they're not as good. They don't achieve what that game achieved. Clearly, Ubisoft would trip over themselves and ruin Assassin's Creed again, wouldn't they?
Madness. This is Sparta!
In comes Odyssey, Assassin's Creed set in ancient Greece during the time of the war between Athens and Sparta. So you got Spartans and Greek gods with your Assassin's Creed universe. The first Assassin's Creed where you can choose your protagonist, male or female. Remember when I said Origins was inspired by Witcher and Dragon Age? Well, Odyssey takes more inspiration from, BioWare when it comes to dialogue options and the dialogue wheel and NPCs viewing you differently based on the decisions that you make throughout the game and the things that you say. There's now a romance option, just like BioWare games and Witcher. You can romance multiple people. I do feel like though, if there's anything in this game that I feel like suffers a lot, it is the romance thing. Because I said it before a long time ago when it came to Elder Scrolls. If you're gonna do romance, either you do it right or you don't do it at all. What makes Dragon Age and Mass Effect and The Witcher stand out when it comes to romance is because they do it right. They don't just say, hey, you can click a certain button and all of a sudden you make out this person, the end. They actually go, there's a full-fledged story behind romance in those games. This game suffers the same way that Elder Scrolls suffers. There is no thought-out story with romance. It's just click a button, you make out, the end. You don't see a person for the rest of the game. That makes no sense to me, and I feel like if there's anything they should improve on with the next Assassin's Creed game, if you're going to do romance options, do better with that. Make sure you actually have a thought-out story for romance, and make sure there's actually things that leads with that romance. I'm not saying you gotta have full-fledged softcore porn in your game. No, that's not what I'm saying. People might take that when you say it should be like Mass Effect where there's sex in the game. No, just have a thought-out story for romance. Don't just have it as a little one-off thing that's in the game. Odyssey is everything that makes Origins amazing, but with Spartans instead of Egyptians. Odyssey, just like Origins, is an amazing game, a beautiful game, a wonderful experience. These two games show that Assassin's Creed is perfect for the RPG genre, and maybe it should have always been a role-playing game to begin with. Oh, before I forget, just like how Bayek has an amazing voice actress, Cassandra in Odyssey, the female main character, her voice actress is amazing. She did a phenomenal job. It's very flawless. Shout out to her, the voice actress for Cassandra. And honestly, the best way to experience Odyssey is as Cassandra. It feels like the game was built up for her, with her in mind. I don't have anything against Alexios, but he isn't as great of a character as Cassandra, and isn't done as amazing when it comes to voice acting as Cassandra was. But not everything is perfect with these two games. There's a reason why these games are 9s and not 10s, and it's something all Assassin's Creed fans have spoken about in the past, and that's leaving the animus. Listen, Ubisoft. You break immersion, you break interest, you break the engagement of the game when you have us leave the animus. We're playing the story for hours upon hours, and out of nowhere we have to leave the animus and do random modern day shit with a character who we don't want to do anything as. There's nothing against Layla as a character, but nobody bought the game for her. We buy Assassin's Creed for the adventure through the historical time period as assassins, not to play as these modern time period things. The whole animus thing and leaving it to play in modern times should have died with Desmond back in Assassin's Creed 3. So what went right with Assassin's Creed now? What was the deciding factor in Assassin's Creed going from a mediocre after mediocre game to back-to-back amazing games? Well, the answer to that is very, very simple and very, very obvious, and that's becoming an RPG. That decision is what went right with this franchise, because doing that allowed the game to be a better game. It allowed developers to open up the world, add to the character development, have even better and more NPCs, and more in-depth experience, a more in-depth world. Because of this, it became more than just go assassinate this person, then that person, and then someone else. It became stories of exploration, boss fights similar to that of The Witcher, Dragon Age, Elder Scrolls, and Dark Souls. Assassin's Creed became more. As simple as that sounds, becoming more was amazing for Assassin's Creed, and we as gamers got to experience two amazing games because it became an RPG and it became more. Hopefully the future Assassin's Creed stays on this path, stays as an RPG, and hopefully we finally do get a future Japan game in the future. With all that said, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all made it this far to the video. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. I appreciate you all. Be kind to one another. Peace out.